Hi everyone, welcome back. So I wanted to do a quick planner update for July. And yeah, there's some stuff here that, well, you probably have seen before, but maybe not. And I'm going to move this out of the way first because I'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, so just to address the elephant in the room, yes, I am still using my Erin Condren. I have spent money on this, and so I'm going to continue using it. I'm not going to go into anything else about that. I understand some people are not, some people are, but I am going to continue using it. Hopefully the methods I use apply no matter what planner you're in. If you're interested in how I'm using it, hopefully that's also helpful to you. So that is all I'm going to say about that. All right, so because I'm using this planner, I have realized as I was traveling, I do miss having something small that I can toss in my purse. This is not a purse-sized planner. This is can put it in my work bag sized planner. But what I ended up doing was getting it's a stone Malden. And essentially there's not much in here. I have an inbox still. This first section is monthly. And then I have a section where if I decide I want to do weekly, I still have the weeklies in here. Most of these are, let's see, I guess I should have mentioned Peanuts Planner Co. These are cloth and paper. These little inserts here. These are from my shop, these monthly pages. Another cloth and paper dashboard. I don't remember where I got that from. Sorry. Something I printed out myself though. This is also from Peanuts Planner Co., these weekly inserts. I have a section for meals if I decide to do meal planning in here and do groceries. I have a section for lists. This is where I have the miniature version, the pocket-sized version of my values and goals and everything like that. Routines, all that jazz. I also have the phone numbers for people at the office. I have a home section, so this is the cleaning section if I decide to do that. And then I have a section for finances. So it's kind of the checklist, but then I also have, this is a blank copy, but I have a budget back here. So I have something on the go if I'm traveling or whatever. Primarily I keep my budget information in YNAB, youneedabudget.com. And that's where I track all of my expenses and my income and everything because it pulls everything in from credit cards, bank accounts, all of it. So I don't have to actually do the manual entry. I just enter in the budget and assign categories. So I love that program. If you're looking for something to use, highly recommend it. So anyway, this is just what I'm keeping in my wallet. Mostly keeping in my purse, sorry. This is mostly just for the monthly pages. So if I'm trying to make an appointment, pretty much always it's when I go and have a massage and I have to turn my phone off. And so it takes forever to boot up again and they're asking me, do you want another appointment? I have a monthly page that I can flip to and write it down. Same thing with a dentist. It's usually a lot faster to pull this out, flip to whatever month, 6 months in the future, than to try and get there on my phone. So that's what I use this for. Next thing, because I do periodically mention what I'm using for quiet time. If you've watched my video about a week ago, I talked about how my unofficial word for the month/quarter is hope. So that's part of the reason that I am doing this study from Cultivate What Matters. They're also the company that does the power sheets. So essentially, it's a verse on the theme that you write out each day. There's a spot for gratitude and a spot for journaling or something like that. So that's what I've been using for my quiet time. The other thing I have been using as well, and it's a website, but they also have an app. It's called Sacred Space. So what it is, Sacred Space is one of many, many websites that has to do with Ignatian spirituality. So this website/app has a prayer session that has 6 stages. So it's the presence of God, freedom, consciousness, the word, conversation, conclusion. I like how it leads you. It's basically invites you to have a conversation with God, so it doesn't become this like rote list of things that you're asking for, or it's not just all gratitude. So when I'm wanting to do something a little more formal, this is actually what I'm using right now. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I highly recommend that as well. So the next thing I am using is my Erin Condren. This is the Franken planner that I put together. It's a combination of hourly and daily. So this is still the same setup as I had before. I've pulled the Q3 pages out because I am starting to work on these. I have a version of this in my store. The Erin Condren size is not there. I could potentially put these out if anyone is interested. They're a 7x9 size, which I think is fairly standard across Recollections, Happy Planner, all of those different sorts of planners. So if there's an interest, I can put this size out there. But I'm transferring forward my annual goals from the power sheets that you saw in my last video about a week ago. I guess it was 2 videos ago. I have my quarterly objectives. So these, if you watched that video on my goal updates, these are essentially my goal outcomes. There's a section for major events. And then the next thing I'm going to do, which last night I was falling asleep, so I didn't get a chance to start there or to move there, was to add my focus word, which is also my Power Sheets book, and then start breaking things down by month. So that's kind of my next step. For July, this is kind of how these are being set up. I went through and I put sticky notes down for meetings and stuff because I wasn't sure what was being held and what wasn't. So some of these I have filled in. Some of them I have not yet because I don't know if the reverse trade show is going to happen, but I do know the budget and board meeting are. So some of them I'm starting to write in as I'm getting confirmation that things will happen. I'm still trying to decide how I'm using all the pages, so that's why I have sticky notes here that potentially I'll put monthly objectives here. There's only 4 lines, so I don't know if that will happen or if I'll put them here. I may put quarterly objectives here. There's 6 lines here. There's also this section, so I mean I could put monthly objectives down here. I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. I do have this page, but I am trying to integrate information into the planner so it's kind of all in one place. I have, yes, pre-decorated because I was kind of playing with planner kits. So this section here where it says this week is where I'm going to be putting this week's projects. So again, I'm still breaking things down, kind of momentum planner-ish. So I will be trying to transfer a lot of that information in here so I have it. So what I'm working on that week will be here. And then I have the daily pages as well. So in the time section, each day I want to make sure I'm writing in my morning routine, the space for the workday startup and shutdown routines, and then my evening routine. I am trying to keep track of the weeks left in the quarter, at least on the first day of the week here. And you'll also notice that I have it here in the upper corner, just so I keep track of, as I'm getting close to the end of the quarter, it's kind of an accountability thing. It keeps me on track. So as that number starts to dwindle, I am starting to think, am I getting the things done that I said I was going to do? In here, I'm planning to have the top 3 and then other to-dos. The daily section I anticipate will primarily be for work. So most of this, I have a feeling, will focus on work items. That means that back here on the daily pages where there's so much blank space, this is probably where I'll start keeping track of like home to-dos, like the 3 home to-dos that I want to do each day. I will keep track of those here. The nice thing is because I have all of my appointments in, I start to see where I don't have a lot of space, like on Thursday. So do I give myself grace and I just don't do anything that day, or, you know, what's the plan? But that helps me make that decision. All right, so that's how I am using the section here. And obviously going forward, it is what it is. And I am still, like, I've moved my dentist appointment 3 times, no joke. That's why you keep seeing all the little scratch out things. But I'm teaching these 3 days and that has moved. So I was originally teaching here, here, and there, and now it's these. So stuff is still very much in flux. So I have made liberal use of whiteout already. But that's just kind of how it goes. So, and sticky notes galore, trying to figure out, originally when I was planning travel and everything, it only went through October 31st. They've now opened things up so I can start to plan travel beyond that. I'm already reminded my mom that, though, that vacation you planned, you're overlapping our year-end party for the company. So we'll see. We may be moving that. But this is why I like having that monthly overview, because I can see fairly quickly as I start to fill stuff out where those overlaps are and where there's conflicts. So I do have a few notes pages here in the back, and because my routines change, probably what I'm going to do is either continue to put them on sticky notes and just replace them, and then that way it's easy for me to change them out as stuff changes, or I may actually print it out and just washi tape it in. But I will want to have that in here. So that is that. If you want to see kind of a full flip through and how I put it together and everything, I'll link a video on when I put this together down below. It doesn't show you the actual like nuts and bolts of me uncoiling because that was a hot mess, but you know. All right, so this is the other thing I wanted to talk about. And this is kind of a sneak peek sort of a thing. And actually when I do my Notion video, I am going to do a screen capture. So that will help. Oh, that's all the way up. Hopefully you can see that. I do have a screen protector on this that's kind of anti-glare. So hopefully that makes it easier to see without the glare from the tripod and the lights and everything. So this is my dashboard in Notion. It is heavily based off of August Bradley's setup right now, with a few tweaks from me thrown in. So this is kind of the side list of everything, and if I shrink everything up, you've probably heard me talking about pillars for sure, but his whole setup is based around pillars, pipelines, and vaults. So pillars are basically the things that everything you do is stacked on top of. They're supporting everything else. Pipelines is how you get information to and from those pillars, like that's the flow of information. And vaults is essentially storage. So it's where information is stored. So in essence, my pillars are my areas of focus. So guiding principles, annual goals, pillars, which is also what I call areas of focus. So for instance, pillars would be Cambridge, finances, health, hobbies and fun, home, human resources, because that's a big part of what I do at work. My YouTube and Etsy store, learning, personal admin, pets, the apartment association or rental housing association, spiritual, spouse, family and friends, and volunteer community. So those are kind of my areas of focus. Those are the things that I identify for myself as being important. So everything I do, I want to tie back to one of these things. So that is why these are here, and that's why they're considered a pillar. So the next kind of, essentially my guiding principles, I think it's a two-way communication back and forth with my pillars. And I think I've talked about these before. When I talked about values, and these may have changed a bit if you've watched any of my videos on my reference inserts, this is exactly what was in the front. So guiding principles without the definitions is mine are faith, family, creativity / growth / learning. Those are all kind of lumped together for me. Balance, loyalty, commitment, community / love your neighbor as yourself, and leadership. So those are my goals and my guiding principles. So if the idea is if there's ever a question, I go back to my guiding principles and think, what would be the answer to this question that most aligns with what I say is important to myself? So that is a reason for knowing what your guiding principles are, but also for having them in an order. Because sometimes you come up against something that pits two of your guiding principles against each other. So then you also have to know not only what they are, but what is their priority, so that you can then make a better decision that most aligns with you as a person. So that is the idea behind guiding principles and or values. It's basically the same thing. And I have an older video from the first time I did a goal setting series on values and how to determine what they are. I'll link that down below. But I think I have to look at my schedule. I think I'm scheduled to do another Finding Your Values video. So that will probably be something you'll see in the next year. Probably, if I remember correctly, I think it's sometime closer to or in December when we start getting back full circle, I think, into where I start talking about goal setting again. And because people will start being focused heavily on goal setting and, you know, end of November, December, January. All right, so from your pillars and guiding principles, which influence each other, then you have your annual goals. So your annual goals should be tied to your pillars. So that's kind of how those are related. Now, habits and routines actually should be under cycles and reviews. I still am moving stuff around as I find out where things are because they're in the wrong spot. But habits and routines, if you think about it, also are a pillar upon which everything else is built, because these are the things that, if I do them like I should, make the rest of my day go much easier. So my habits and routines that I either have developed or I'm working on developing, which are tied to my goal outcomes and pillars, are being in bed by 11 at the latest, but aiming for 10:30, because if I aim for 10:30, I'm actually in bed by 11. I'm a night owl and I tend to linger outside of bed. Daily planning and journaling. So doing that twice a day. I have a time of day, so I do that usually workday startup and shutdown. Data tracking. So usually I'm tracking sleep. Along with sleep, I track a readiness score that I get from the Autosleep? Yeah, the Autosleep app gives you the time you're spent in bed, and based on a variety of information, they give you a readiness score, which basically gives you an idea of how much energy you're going to have that day. I'm tracking weight and percentage of body fat, and then activity. So those are the sorts of things that I'm tracking. Usually it takes me like 3 minutes to enter stuff in. Let's see. Evening routine, quiet time, morning routine, exercising on weekdays. This is one I want to develop. I've been very bad about it. I was good for a little bit, but then this is a habit that's very easy for me to break. Giving my dog his eye medicine is another one that I kind of go through phases, and I'm trying to be better about it. Doing 3 home tasks each day. We talked a little bit about that before in a previous video. Budgeting 20% of regular income to savings. Essentially what I'm doing is snowballing. It's approximately the amount that I was spending on student loans and auto loan extra on top of what I was saving already. So it's snowballing all of that extra money into savings. And then exercise weekdays is kind of tied to workout 5 times a week. I'm looking at bar blender yoga. So this is kind of more specific than just exercise weekdays. And sometimes I need to be that specific. All right. So there's that. This is something I haven't fleshed out. I liked the idea. Essentially, August Bradley has a page where he keeps a lot of information that he identifies with and wants to remember, and he reads through portions of it each day. So it's things that he wants to remember, things that inspires him. And I liked the idea. I have not fleshed that out yet. I also have a health log in here, which is essentially where I can track workouts that I'm doing, and it kind of spits it into my daily tracking pages. All right, so that's all under pillars. Pipelines has all of my action items, all of my projects. I separated out my travel from my projects because I have different information that I track as far as travel goes, because it's not just when am I gone. It is a project because I have tasks that are associated with them, so it ties into my action items. But I also track, like, how am I traveling? Will I need a pet sitter? Where am I going? That sort of thing. So it has kind of its own specific list of information that I get as a part of that. I have goal outcomes. These are all tied with not only the annual goals, but then on the other side, projects, tasks, habits, and routines. So he talks about there being kind of let me do it this way. He talks about there being a pyramid. So at the top, very narrow, very few number of them, you have your annual goals, you have your pillars, the things, your guiding principles. There's very few of them. When you get to the bottom, you have a lot of action items. and all of the things at the bottom support the things at the top. So if you think about it, these items are kind of at the top, these items are kind of getting towards the bottom based on the number of them and how they relate. I also have a section for content production, so keeping track of like what's coming up next, what I need to film, where it is in production and all of that. I have my filming and editing calendar. When I'm on my computer, it actually shows me what it is. Here it just has dots. So I'm keeping track of when I want to actually be filming and editing things. So I get off schedule, man, I get behind. I have my business overview. This is where I'm going to link things kind of all together. I have my daily journal. So essentially each one of these tables, if you see these arrows, whoops, they relate to other tables. So they kind of link together. So if I'm in the daily journal page and I want to see the week information, I can tap on the week and it will take me to the week. And then I can scroll down and look at the weekly information. So it's nice because it basically, each of these is like a link to a different place inside of Notion. So it's very easy to move between things. So if I am in, let's just say, for example, I have a daily dashboard. So this is what I look at each day. So let's say I have a task of going grocery shopping. There's a spot down here for notes, so I can make my list down here. If I want to mark when I completed it, I can tap on that and type in what day. And that makes it very easy to tie it to a day. I can tie it to a goal outcome. It's probably not a good example. This is something I did earlier. So I have the task of editing the Q2 Power Sheets update, which I actually just finished filming. I can see what the previous task was, which was filming it. If I want, I can assign the next task, which is to upload it. The related content is the Q2 Power Sheets update. So if I click on that, I can actually see more information. I've created a template which has all the associated action items, my editing checklist, my video checklist. I don't script my non-goal setting videos, but if I do script them, I have a spot for a script there. If I want to make notes of title ideas, these are little toggles, so I can do that. I can put a description of the video. I can put the video URL in after it's been uploaded. So it just gives me a place to keep all the information. All right, so that's all of that. Sprint is where I'm going to be keeping track of all of these backlog of projects for the iterative review that I'm planning for Cambridge. So that's why that is there. Vaults are just basically a collection of information. So I have a spot for books that I have read and or referenced, ideas. So a lot of these are links or online courses. I have a spot for meeting notes. So I have kind of a central place to keep track of notes I've taken at a meeting, because I end up with all these little scraps of paper that I don't know what to do with. Knowledge Hub, which is kind of almost like a table of contents for all of these different things. So if I relate it back to the Knowledge Hub of what the topic is, then I can say, oh, let me see Stoicism. So I have 2 notes and ideas linked to it. I have Words and Wisdom, which you can't actually see all of that, but that's my commonplace book. It's tagged to Stoicism, so if I click on that, it will take me to everything that's tagged Stoicism in my database. So it's just a quick way to kind of expand what I'm looking at and contracting, so I can see the big picture and then I can see the individual things. Commonplace book is actually where I keep track of quotes that I found interesting. There are, especially lately, because there are times when I know there's a quote, I cannot find it, and I finally track it down, but periodically I want to reference it again, and then I have to go find it. So now I'm keeping track of it in here, so if I'm like, There's a quote by Madeline Allingle talking about battlefields and slums and insane asylums, and talking about if God created because of love, then why are there battlefields and slums and insane asylums? So it's something that periodically comes to mind, and I want to go back. So now I know it's from the Irrational Season. And so I know what book it came from if I want to go find it again. And I copied the entire quote in so that I would have it, because I've referenced it in a couple of things. There was another quote that I had been looking for forever that I could not find, and I had seen summaries of it and something similar, and I just could not figure out where it came from. And while I was looking for the previous quote, I found it in the Irrational Season again. So and as I say that, I just know, just found out, this is not we swill, it's we will. There we go. So this is a quote I have been looking for forever. I tell people about it and then I cannot figure out where it came from. So now I have it. It's safe. It's in my commonplace book. And there are times when I do highlights in my Kindle books, and you can actually go and look at all of the highlights that you've made. Amazon has a Kindle page that has kind of like a notebook of sorts. So you can go and see everything you've highlighted. So I've copied and pasted those in here too, so that I can find them again. And you can go through and you can, in my situation, I have the source, where it relates to in the Knowledge Hub. So if I want to see all the quotes I have on something specific, then I can look at that. I also have tags, so I can, tag things with different items, what books they're related to, and then I actually just added the daily journal, so I can tag it with the day that I found it. Which this was something that I copied and pasted this morning from the Sacred Space website. So, and it was on Hope, which is funny because that's now that I am doing this and seeing the Cultivate Hope, I'm finding hope quotes everywhere, which is really interesting. And I know it's reticular something. There's a name for your brain, since you're focusing on it, finding it everywhere. So then I have a spot for contacts and relationships, the sprint backlog, which is related to the other thing that I posted up here, which is the sprint. So the backlog is a list of all the tasks. The sprint is what I'm focusing on. So essentially, a sprint backlog is similar to like someday maybe list, if you're thinking of it in GTD terms. And the sprint is a list of everything you're actually working on. I have a book that I just purchased on Scrum for CFOs, which looked really promising. I have yet to read that. But I am imagining some of that will end up in my commonplace book. And then I added this section here, things that I do also that are outside of Notion. And these are things from Organized 365. It's the name of her website. So some of the items that she has that she does every Sunday, I put in here. Because I find updating and rebooting all of my electronic devices, it's so helpful to just do it all at once. So I don't have one iPad that's been updated, my computer is not, my phone has, my watch is not. So I try and do it all at the same time. And because I seem to find the battery life is better if right after I update, I reboot it, I do that also. So either way, I reboot things on Sundays, so at least it's being rebooted once a week. And if there's an update available, I'll do it at that time. It's when I also charge electronics that don't need to be charged every day. So remotes, headphones, that sort of thing. So that is kind of what my weekly review is looking like right now. If I go back to monthly reviews, let me pull in June because I don't think I've done it yet. So I think this was a list of the things that I wanted to try and get done for June and then for quarter 3, or things that I was hoping to finish in June and things that were going to extend into quarter 3. So it's just kind of a reminder of what I was trying to work on. The W, M, and Q, that's how long I expect things to take. Like distributing the employee handbook should take me less than a week. The renewing the fictitious business name is actually going to take a quarter because I have some waiting time associated with that. So yeah. So again, you have your action items completed, database fields that you can enter, reviewing accomplishments and disappointments, assessing the month, reviewing and updating all of the bigger picture items, reviewing and updating your goals, projects, doing any of the media processing that you need to do, and then bookkeeping. So this is part of that checklist where I need to be recording my income and expense, places that I need to look for those items, and then reconciling my bank accounts in YNAB. So this is kind of just, I think, a quick view of everything. If I open cycles and reviews, this is where all of those more granular things live. So rather than actions and projects, this is where weeks, months, quarters, vision, which is basically kind of like the master overarching things. This is where all my goals are linked. This is basically my year. Everything is linked to my year. This is where I have my theme for the year, which is my focus word, all of that. So there's guides. So this is where I kind of keep the other checklists that I use for my morning and evening routine. I have my optimal day. So this is kind of what my current routines look like, which I think I mentioned earlier in the video, having 3 things I for sure do, and then I try and do other things around it. Although that may have been my... This is what happens when you record 2 videos in a row. Now I'm trying to remember what video I referenced stuff in. Anyway, I talked about having a bare minimum morning and evening routine, and then the other nice to do things. Bare minimum morning is make bed, shower and dress, feed pets, breakfast and coffee. If I get that done, I count it as good. I would also like to wash dishes, make sure I've picked up the bathrooms, making sure I've mopped the kitchen floor and cleaned up the dog's mess from overnight. Evening routine, bare minimum, is to take out my contacts, wash my face, brush my teeth, and go to bed. The rest of this is just nice to do stuff. And then the workday startup and shutdown are the things I do at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, just to kind of wrap things up. So yeah, that's kind of what Notion looks like. So this is kind of where I've been spending a lot of time. And I will definitely go into how things flow back and forth. But this is kind of where I keep everything. But this is super easy to get into, and then the next thing you know, it's a rabbit hole and you're playing, you're tweaking, you're adding a column, you're linking 2 more databases together, and oh, I need to add this page in. And next thing I know, it's 4 hours later, and I'm like, I have not gotten any work done today. So this is kind of the master list. And then I keep like the focus stuff in here. So this keeps me focused every day. So I open it up to the day and think, okay, what do I need to do today? These are the things I need to do today. Now I am filming this early. It's the 23rd, which is why nothing has been filled out here yet. But again, trying to be mindful of my time. I know what I'm using. I just am not ready to the point where I'm going to plan the day. But these top 3, that's going to keep me focused. What do I need to do absolutely for sure today? Which corresponds, when you're in here, if you go to the daily dashboard, there's priorities. So ideally, I'd like to get to the point where I only have 3 first priorities. Obviously, I have a bunch of them, but I'm also catching up on things that I've been rolling forward. So that's part of the reason why I have so many of the first, second, and I have no third priorities. But you know. So anyway, that's kind of how these 2 interact. This is my master list, and then this is how I stay focused so I don't start playing with everything in Notion. Because it is, when you like to do web design and database design and efficiency, you start playing with the system more than when you use it. And having a paper planner allows me to stop playing with my system and actually get some work done. Because I am very good at playing with systems, as evidenced by how many times I trade out planners. So that is my current planner stack for July. I have one electronic planner, Erin Condren. My quiet time is Writing the Word and Sacred Space, which is an app on my phone. And then my kind of travel planner, so I have a quick reference while I'm out and about, is this pocket-sized Malden. Which it's funny because when I first got a pocket-sized Malden, it was the brown, the ochre. It didn't really grow on me, but I love. It's like the more I use these, the more I really like them. I do like my Vanderspecs, but this is a nice option. And yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'm happy to answer them for you. Yes, there is a more in-depth Notion video series coming. I did kind of want to give you an overview, so it was probably really quick. You may have a lot of questions, but I will definitely be answering them more in depth. So, more coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!